You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Ripple, Litecoin, and more. Cryptocurrencies and other digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity. Provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments on everything from coins to tokens, futures, and even OTC options. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVOL, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CeFi options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVOL Analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again for the Crypto Rundown, the program here on the Options Insider Radio Network, where we explore all the goings-on in those crazy, those wild, those wondrous crypto markets. Going to talk Bitcoin, some ETH, maybe some Solana, mix in some other altcoin in there as well. Going to talk the volume, the volatility, the SKEW, the OI, what the big positions are, and a whole bunch more. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-compelling network upon which so many of you are binging these days. Hey, go on, keep binging. We don't mind the bandwidth bills. It's all love at the end of the day. And, of course, if you like what you hear, you're one of our many on-demand listeners. First off, if you're just listening to crypto, man, you're missing out a heck of a lot. Check out the full network wherever you get this fine show. And, of course, if you like what you hear, do keep rating and reviewing either on the crypto show, on the full network, wherever you get our app, wherever you get this content. There are a legion of ways for you to rate and review to help new people continue to discover the show. And then, of course, if you want more in your lives beyond just the network, including you want to ask great questions and maybe some of the leading minds, not just in the world of options and derivatives, but also crypto. We've had a lot of great crypto heads in our pro Q&A sessions over there for our pro members, as well as Unusual Activity, Options Oddity show every Friday. So you're getting 2 exclusive shows every week. You're going to get access to our pro podcast feed, which has all of those great crypto guests and many more in there waiting for you, as well as, of course, our great giveaways, the next pro trading crate coming out, live access to everything we do here on the network, and a whole bunch more. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro. That's the place to go to learn more about all that fun as we learn more about what's going on in the Bitcoin breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show where we do just that. We break down all the action in the world's leading digital asset. Yes, we're talking about good old Bitcoin itself. And coming into showtime, we are seeing Bitcoin a little bit higher than it was this time last week, even though if it is retreating a little bit today. But net, since our last show, it is up a little over 400 handles. It was 20,449 on our last show, just a little bit shy of 20,450. And on today's show, coming in to start the show, it was 20,800. So you're talking about 407 handles to the north this week. Can we maintain that? We shall see. We did flirt below our show level last week. That came on Thursday. We dropped down to about 20,102. That was the low for the week, and the high came the day after that on Fridays. We did a lot of living over a span of a couple of days. We got up to about 21,000, almost 21,500, about 21,445 on the upside. So we had a decent range out there this week, and that was not enough, though, to maintain our vol levels. Remember, we started to tick up a little bit on the show last week, and the SKEW was certainly starting to evolve as well. By the way, all these analytics coming at you courtesy of our friends over there at Genesis Volatility, gvol.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. Now they are known as Amber Data. They're just acquired by Amber Data, AMBERDATA. So they are now Amber Data derivatives, but you can still find them at the old URL. gvol.io is the place to go for all of these analytics we're going to talk about on the show today and a whole bunch more. And if you did that, you would see that the current vol level out there, their current average at the money vol across the term structure is about a 53.5. Puts it down by exactly 2 points from where it was this time last week. We were at 55.5 this time last week. SKEW-wise, we were talking about the SKEW flattening up on the show last week. That meant the bid to the puts had vanished, and we were pretty much even on both sides of the call. That means if you take your 25 delta put and your 25 delta call and look at them both, they were both trading at about the same volatility level. So there was no premium, there was no fear, there was no bias in either direction. And this time, it has slowly, just ever so slightly, crept back in to the put wing, but not even a full point. It's negative 0.75. So it's still pretty much flat out there right now, listeners. Now let's go out to the OI, see how things are lining up from an open interest perspective right now. And we're seeing at Deribit, at least, it's still hanging out close to that 2-to-1 calls over puts. 175,000 calls are open on Deribit right now. That's actually unchanged on the week, which is kind of interesting. Don't see that too often. And the puts have ticked up a little bit, actually. So that's up to about 93,000 contracts. It's up about 4,000 on the week. So we're slightly below 2-to-1 calls over puts, which is also interesting. Don't see too many weeks where the calls stay unchanged and the puts grow, but that's what we're seeing out there this week. Now, speaking of open interest, what are the size positions open in Bitcoin options right now on Deribit? Let's go find out. Number 5, we have the 30,000 strike. There are about 12,800 contracts open there. That's up about 500 from this time last week. Number 4, we have the 19,000 strike that has about 14,000 contracts open. That's down 800. In fact, there's a tie there for the 4/3 spot because also with 14,000 contracts open, we have the 25,000 strike that has actually gained about 100 on the week. So both of them hanging out right around the 14,000 level, 19,000 and 25,000 strikes respectively. Then we jump up to the number 2 spot. We have the 22,000 strike that has 15,600 contracts open. That's up about 800. Again, this week, it was up 800 last week as well. So interesting to watch the increments out there at the 22,000 strike. And the number 1 size position in Bitcoin options right now, the 20,000 strike that has 18,000 contracts open there. That's up about 1,400 from this time last week. And again, that makes sense. It's an important psychological level. We've been flirting with it for quite some time, so it makes sense that would be the top spot. And again, most of these positions are actually fairly relevant strikes, which is kind of interesting. We get some of the other assets out there, you're going to see maybe something a little bit different. But for Bitcoin, and again, for a long time, this wasn't the case in Bitcoin either. Bitcoin had all sorts of par strikes, the 100,000, 200,000 strike. Those were size positions in Bitcoin for quite some time. And now we're seeing things start to hang out where the underlying is actually hanging out, which is kind of interesting. Again, we're at about a little over 20,000, about 21,000 right now, close to it in Bitcoin right now. And we're seeing the 20,000, 22,000, and then 25,000, 19,000, and 30,000 strike as the top position. So again, relevant strikes, which is always kind of interesting. In terms of action, how much action did we see out there in Bitcoin since our last show? We actually have to go back 2 weeks because we didn't have a chance to rope in the volume numbers for last week's show as well. And if we do that, we'll see actually the 28th of October was a pretty busy day. That was the busiest day, certainly in the last couple of weeks. 55,000 contracts on the tape. That's almost double what we saw the week before on the 20th. And not quite as much as we saw back on the 13th with 63,000 contracts open. But 55,000 contracts, that's pretty respectable. Outside of October 13th, we have to go all the way back to quite a ways. We have to go back to June 13th, the days when it really sold off. And even then, that was only about 54,400 contracts. So 55,000 contracts is nothing to sneeze at out there on Deribit. Speaking of sneezing at things, let's see if we can sneeze at the CME crypto numbers this week. Let's see what we got on the tape. By the way, this report you can see for yourselves, again, completely for free, courtesy of one of our sponsors over there at CME Group. Head on over to cmegroup.com/TWIFO, TWIFO. That's the name of the show that we do with them every Thursday, This Week in Futures Options, which you certainly be checking out if you're listening to this show, because we do touch on crypto there as well. In fact, we have a whole report just for it. If you go to those TWIFO reports, then you go into that asset class, you can see there's a report for just about everything they trade over there at CME. So you're talking ags and energy and equities, but also a whole section for cryptocurrency. Slide into there, and we're going to look at the big Bitcoin options first, because those are the big dogs in terms of notional size, not always in terms of volume. In fact, really never in terms of volume. But that might be changing. Looking at what's going on out there just today, we've seen already 150 contracts going up, including 110 of the 18,000 puts going away in December. So the December 18,000 puts doing 110 contracts just today, and 150 contracts total in the big Bitcoin options, which again, that's not a lot, but if you've been listening to this show for a while, or a TWIFO show, you know this product, when it launched, they could do 10 or 12 contracts in a week. So 150 in a day, that's quite the surge. And in terms of action on the week last week, actually over 1,000 contracts, 1,024 contracts went up in the big Bitcoin options at CME. That is actually impressive. Including the big dog was the 13,000 puts in December. They went up 116 times last Thursday, all opening. So new opening. In fact, all these positions were all opening, which is kind of interesting. So no closing out there. We also saw about 100 of the 17,000 puts going up. These are the November contract here. They went up on Tuesday. Pretty much all opening there as well. 17,000 puts going up 100 times. So a lot of 100 lots going up out there. And that's not far enough out of the money for you listeners. The March 10,000 puts went up 100 times. Actually, it looks like it was the 10,000, 15,000 put spread went up 100 times on Friday. So there you go. 200 contracts right there. All opening. You like that? 15,000, 10,000 put spread? Maybe you're a little bit spooked, a little bit concerned by the levels going into the start of next year. Sounds like someone here is. There are 300 contracts open total on each of those strikes, but it looks like that was opening. So they're adding into it, which is fascinating. So there's some decent size open on that 15,000, 10,000 put spread there in March. Let's get out to some of the contracts that you folks like and are a little bit more bite-sized for your trading style. These are the micro contracts over there at CME. And these are another one. We've kind of lamented the fact that they can't really seem to catch fire out there, because size-wise, they make a lot of sense for a lot of our audience. And we're not seeing any paper going up out there so far this week. So nothing on the docket so far today. So that's interesting. A lot of paper in the big contracts, not so much in the small ones. And last week, only 240 contracts. So we saw roughly 4x more of the big 5x multiplier contracts going up last week than we saw on the micro contracts, which is very surprising. Only 240 going up last week. The big dog, such as it was, 22,000 calls in December, went up 69 times last week. So for whatever reason, the micro Bitcoin options over there at CME can't really catch fire. Let's see if our friend Bitto can catch fire. That's, of course, a product I know a lot of you folks out there watch with a lot of anticipation. Coming into the start of the show is at about a 12.80. It's up about 20 cents on the week. Looking at it right now, it's up to, looks like about a 12.90. So it's up about 30 cents on the week. And in terms of vol, we're seeing the vol coming in. It was a little bit north of 60, almost 60 and a half last week. This week, it is 55.4. So it's down about exactly 5 points on the week. So vol coming in out there in Bitto land. In terms of top positions, what are the top 5 positions in Bitto? Let's go find out. And right now, the number 5 position in there is the DEES 13 puts. 12,500 of those are open right now. Number 4, 18,800 of the DEES 12 calls. Number 3, 28,000 of the December 10 puts. Number 2, almost 31,000 of the December 15 calls. And the top position in Bitto options right now, 88,000 of the December 10 puts. Interesting. Have you folks been trading in Bitto? I know for a while there was attractive for a lot of you. The put wing had a decent amount of juice to it, so it was attractive for put sellers and 1x2s and all those kinds of things. That has mitigated somewhat. So have you put on new positions? Have you washed your hands of it? I'd be curious. Hit us up. Let us know as we keep on rolling right on into the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe. We're going to kick things off looking at the overall market cap landscape, see how things are hanging out in the top 10 out there. And number 10, once again, this is similar to what we saw last week, seeing our friend out there, Solana, hanging out at the number 10 spot. It has been usurped by Doge and a few others there. Doge was hanging on to the top 10 spot, but ever since Mr. Musk took over Twitter, Doge has caught a bit of a bid. So intriguing stuff out there. Number 10, Solana, 11.7 billion worth of market cap. Number 9, Cardano, a little bit north of 14 billion for number 9. Number 8 is the old Doge, hanging out 15.3 billion worth of market cap. That is intriguing. Number 7, Binance, 22.5 billion. Number 6, XRP, 23.6 billion. We've been hanging out in XRP, just waiting for so long now that it's almost hard to continue paying attention to it. But the rumors have been imminent for some time that something will happen, so we shall see. Number 5, good old USD coin, 43 billion worth of market cap. Number 4, BNB, we jump up again to 54.4 billion. Number 3, it's Tether, 69.5 billion. Numero Due, it's ETH, 194 billion. And rounding out the top 10 again this week, Bitcoin, 398 billion, so just a tick under 400 billion worth of market cap. Speaking of ticking, we got ETH ticking up again this week, ever so slightly. It was 1572 on our show last week, 1605 when we kicked off the show. This week, up about 33 handles on the week. And it pretty much bounced around in that range for most of the week. The lowest it got was 1511 back on Wednesday of last week. And the high came on Friday of 1660. So not a huge evolution out there in the ETH range. But you know what? It's enough to maintain the vol levels, which is kind of interesting. I think it's like whenever we tiptoe through a new strike to the upside, like 1600, it seems like it give a little bit of new life to the vol out here, because we're hanging out at about a 76 3/4. That's actually up about 3/4 of a point. We're at a 76 on the show last week. So intriguing stuff out there. Even though last week the SKEW had evolved to flat, just like it was in Bitcoin, it is now ticking ever so slightly negative, down to about a negative 0.4. But again, that's effectively flat yet again. So we're still seeing the options both in Bitcoin and in ETH. They're kind of shrugging their shoulders right now. They don't know which way we're headed. There's no big premium in either direction out there, which is always kind of fascinating. And then in terms of OI, what's open out there? In terms of Deribit, it is still pretty much the 4-1 or pretty close to it. Calls over puts right now, even though the calls have ticked down ever so slightly. They're down about 20,000 contracts to 3.58 million. And the puts are ticking up. 992,000 contracts open on the puts. It's up about 39,000 contracts. So almost the exact same pattern as what we saw in Bitcoin options. The calls are holding steady, coming in slightly, and then the puts actually ticking up. So we're actually inside that 4-1 calls over puts right now, which is kind of interesting out there. And we've been hanging out at that level for so long. It seems like it's almost the rule now. In terms of size positions, what is open in ETH right now on Deribit? And ETH, a little bit of a different beast than what we've seen in Bitcoin. Bitcoin, as I broke down earlier, very, dare I say it, relevant strikes, very close to the at the money. Not so much the case in ETH, maybe reflecting still some latent optimism. People want to play out of the money, whatever the case may be. It's a different story here. Number 5 in the top 5 positions in ETH is the 1600 strike, 224,000 contracts open. That's up 12,000. And again, that's pretty much the at-the-money strike right now. So certainly a very relevant strike. Actually, we have a tie for 5/4 because equal to it, we have the 1800 strike with also 224,000 contracts open. That's up about 14,000 on the week. So again, a fairly relevant strike, all things considered. Then we get to number 3 and we jump up quite a bit. Number 3 is the 3500 strike. That has 288,000 contracts open there. So that's quite a leap even though that level is unchanged on the week. Number 2, we have the 4,000 strike, so also getting up there. That has 332,000 contracts open. That's also unchanged on the week. And the big dog, yet again this week, the 3,000 strike, that has 405,000 contracts open. That's down, actually, 4,000. That's been the big dog for quite some time, so it's kind of treading water on the week, but intriguing. So we start off at 1,600 and 1,800, then we leap all the way up to 4,000. So intriguing size positions open out there in ETH options. In terms of action, we actually saw a fairly decent couple of weeks out there. In fact, the busiest day we've seen in the last couple of weeks was October 26th. 797,000 contracts changed hands on that day, listeners. That is quite a bit. To put it in context, outside of that, the busiest day we've seen since we've been tracking these numbers really goes back to the day after the merge in September, where we saw 743,000 contracts. So this actually exceeds that. So right now, this is the busiest day we've seen out there in ETH options. I'll have to dive into everything to make sure, but since we've been running the numbers on this show, that is an impressive level out there. And again, didn't require a massive move or something else to really drive those numbers. So intriguing. ETH just putting up numbers out there since our last show. Let's see if the same thing can be said for the CME products. Let's go back to the big dogs, the big Ether options. Remember, they just listed these not too long ago. These are 50 ETH. So again, the multiplier is not for you and I. It's for the large funds out there that want to put some size ETH positions on. And we're starting to see that again today. The big ETH options doing 64 contracts just today, including the 1,700 puts in December, trading about 20 times today. So 64 contracts, again, doesn't sound like a lot, and it isn't. But in the short history of this product, and certainly in the longer history of Bitcoin options, that's actually a fairly impressive amount. Actually, I take that back. We did 64 last week, and we've already done 40 so far today. So that's even more impressive, including it looks like the 1,600 calls in November. It's like a 1,608. That's the exact same tracks we were just talking about, 1,600 and 1,800, right? The 1,600, 1,800 vertical went up today 20 times out there in November. So there you go. That's all of our 40 contracts right there. Let's get out to the micro contracts, see if there's a little bit more action out there in these bite-size ETH contracts. And again, this is another one that comes in fits and starts in terms of volume. Like today, almost 1,500 contracts have already gone up today, including 406 of the 1,600 calls in November. They're doing the same verdict. Yes, actually, not quite. They're doing the 1,600 calls, but also doing 140 of the 1,575. So if it is a vertical, that is a bit of a ratio. And then we also have 200 of the 1,500 puts going up in December out there today as well. So interesting scattershot paper, which again is kind of the hallmark of this product because it trades in fits and starts. It'll do a bunch of paper and then not much. Like I said, already 1,500 contracts today. Last week, 4,100. So not the busiest of weeks, but some days they had some paper. So it's an intriguing one. The big dog last week looks like it was the 15 half puts in December. They did 604 contracts last week, 500 on Thursday and 105 basically on Wednesday, all opening last week. So intriguing. We also saw, if you want get a little bit lower, the 10,000 puts. Looks like the 10,000, 12,000 put spread went up 450 times on Wednesday. So again, that's 900 contracts right there. And that was all opening there as well. So interesting. What are your thoughts on some of these positions? Have you traded, especially the micro? I wouldn't expect anyone out there to be, except for the funds, to be trading the big stuff. But have you dabbled in the micro products? They're intriguing, but for whatever reason, they can't manage to catch fire. Let's see if our friend Solana can catch fire out there this week, listeners. And the answer is not really. It's kind of treading water on the week. It was 32.88 on our last show, 32.64 on this show coming at the start of the show. So it's down nearly a quarter on the week. Not a huge evolution out there. What is interesting, though, and again, some of this is just driven by the fact that there's less OI out there, so it's easier for these numbers to move around a little bit. But right now, we have seen a market increase in the vol. The at-the-money vol was a 79 on the show last week, 96 on the show this week. So Solana doing some living over the span of the last week and change out there. SKEW-wise, also seeing the SKEW starting to tick up. It was negative 0.75 on the show last week, 1.9 this week. So swing into the positive, nearly 2 points positive this week. That is certainly interesting. We have seen some evolutions in the size OI out there in Solana, and that continues again this week. For a long time, it was all puts all the time. Now it has swung to the calls, and it continues to swing to the calls this week. The 570,000 calls are open right now. It's up 160,000 on the week. The puts, 461,000 open there. It's up 107,000. So obviously calls gaining more distance. What are the top 5 positions out there in Solana options right now? Let's find out, listeners. Remember I said we're hanging out at about a 32.64 when we kicked off the show. The number 5 position is the 36 strike. So slightly out of the money. 63,000 contracts are open there. That's a newcomer to our top 5. Number 4, we have the 35 strikes, getting a little closer. 91,000 contracts open there. It's up 37,000 from this time last week. Number 3, we have the 40 strike, 96,000 contracts there. It's up 31,000 from this time last week. Number 2, we have the 32 strike, 145,000 contracts open there. It's up 12,000 on the week. And the number 1 size position in Solana options this week, the 34 strike with 159,000 contracts. It's up nearly 100,000 contracts, 99,000. So we are seeing some interesting evolutions out there in Solana options. And that's also reflected in the most active days. The busiest day in the last couple of weeks for Solana options, October 26th, 506,000 contracts going up. That also happens to be the busiest day since we've started watching Solana options. Now, granted, that isn't a long frame of reference. It only goes back to September. But still, that's nearly double what it was the week before. The week before was 216,000 contracts. So, in fact, the busiest day we've seen outside of October 26th was back on September 30th with 237,000 contracts open there. So you're talking more than double that on October 26th. So interesting stuff out there. Let's explore the rest of the altcoin universe, and we'll get you out of here for this week, listeners. XRP, like we said, kind of treading water. It's actually up a couple of cents this week. It was 45.4 cents last week, 47.4 cents this week. But everyone's still playing the wait and see game out there in XRP. Dogecoin actually has retreated a little bit from its highs. It's post-Musk euphoria. It was 13 cents last week, 11.5 cents this week, so down about 1.5 cents. Still frothy enough to maintain its number 8 spot there in the market cap rankings. Litecoin, 54.5 last week, 68.37 this week, up nearly 14 handles. So a huge move out there in Litecoin. I'm going to start adding Litecoin options to the rundown if it can keep moving like this. Cardano on the show last week, 40.4 cents, 41.2 cents this week. It's not a huge move there. Polkadot, 669 last week, 737 this week, up nearly 70 cents on the week. And everybody's friend Shiba, pretty much treading water this week as well. All right, everybody. I want to thank you for tuning in to this Just the Facts edition of the Crypto Rundown. Again, this week, remember, if you want to check out all these analytics for yourselves, you know where to go. gvol.io is the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. Stay tuned for a lot of great content coming at you throughout the rest of the week from us, including for our pro members, another great pro Q&A. Got John Brady coming in from RGO to answer all your questions about all the futures and options markets out there, including crypto, but also he likes to talk about rates. So if you have questions about rates in this crazy environment, get them in now. Of course, if you want to learn more about how you participate in that session, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more. And then back throughout the rest of the week, including for a lot of you out there, should be checking out TWIFO on Thursdays this week in futures options. We do touch on crypto there as well, all the way through to next Monday, another episode of the Crypto Rundown. Stay safe out there, everybody.
This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVOL, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CeFi options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVOL analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.